Thanksgiving evening settled over the Carter family dining room with a warm, deceptive calm. The long oak table gleamed beneath soft chandelier light, dressed with polished silverware and crystal glasses that caught every flicker. At the center sat a perfectly roasted turkey, its skin golden and fragrant with spice. Naomi Carter sat upright at her place, composed, attentive, and quietly observant. When she lifted her glass to thank her aunt, Judith Carter, for the gift that had arrived days earlier, the room shifted almost imperceptibly. Judith paused, her fingers steady around the stem of her wineglass, her expression tightening with confusion. She said she didn't understand what Naomi meant. Naomi repeated herself gently, mentioning the bicycle she had received. Judith's brows drew together. She said, plainly and without hesitation, that she had never given Naomi a bicycle. The words landed with a dull, invisible force. Naomi felt a pressure bloom behind her ears, as if something deep and delicate had fractured. Across the table, Lydia Carter stiffened, her smile vanishing. Patricia Carter's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. No one spoke. Before I continue, I need to ask you for a favor. Your support means the world to this channel. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps make that possible. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. That simple action helps the channel grow and enables me to continue creating powerful stories. The room, moments ago full of warmth, felt suddenly brittle, as if the slightest sound might cause it to crack. Judith set her glass down with deliberate care and looked directly at Naomi. She asked her niece to explain. Naomi did not raise her voice. She described exactly what had been delivered to her apartment, an old, rusted bicycle, damaged and barely functional. She explained that her mother had called beforehand, saying the gift came from Judith and was meant to encourage Naomi to stay healthy. Judith listened in silence, her posture rigid, her gaze sharpening with each word. She said that made no sense. Weeks earlier, she had transferred $500,000 into Naomi's account, intending to give her niece complete freedom to choose something meaningful. She had even mentioned that the amount was enough to buy a luxury car, if Naomi wished. Lydia choked on her drink, coughing hard as liquid splashed onto her dress. Patricia avoided Judith's eyes entirely. Naomi watched them both, calm on the surface, while a cold certainty settled inside her. She worked as a federal cybercrime analyst, trained to recognize patterns that others missed. The numbers, the behavior, the timing, it all aligned too cleanly to be coincidence. Beneath the polished table and polite smiles, something rotten had been carefully hidden. 10 days earlier, Naomi had been sitting alone in her office as winter rain streaked down the windows. The space was quiet except for the hum of servers and the soft clicking of her keyboard as she traced an international money laundering network across multiple screens. Her phone vibrated. Lydia's name appeared. The call felt odd before Naomi even answered. Lydia sounded cheerful in a way that felt forced. She said Naomi didn't need to come home for Thanksgiving. Work was important. Flights were expensive. Naomi should rest. Patricia agreed. Lydia added quickly. Naomi paused, unsettled. Her sister had never shown interest in Naomi's career before. Naomi said she would decide later and suggested speaking directly with Judith. Lydia dismissed the idea, saying their aunt was too busy. The call ended abruptly. The next afternoon, a delivery truck arrived at Naomi's apartment. The driver handed over a battered bicycle, clearly used, barely intact. A handwritten note from Patricia claimed it was Judith's gift. Naomi didn't touch it. Judith valued quality and precision above all else. The gift made no sense. The doubt that had begun with Lydia's phone call hardened into suspicion. Naomi rebooked the earliest flight home. During the trip, she scrolled through Lydia's social media account. The images were glossy and confident, carefully staged. One photo stopped her cold. Lydia stood in front of a pristine white luxury SUV, leaning casually against the hood, champagne in hand. The caption spoke of success and reward. Naomi recognized the model instantly. After landing, she drove straight to her childhood home. The vehicle from the photo was parked in front of the garage, spotless and new. Inside, laughter cut off the moment Naomi knocked. Patricia opened the door too quickly, her smile strained. Lydia appeared moments later, wearing an engagement ring that glittered unnaturally bright. Daniel Whitman, Lydia's fiancé, greeted Naomi politely, confident and unaware. When Naomi casually asked about the car, Lydia answered too fast, claiming Daniel had bought it with his own success, helped by her influencer income. Naomi smiled and said nothing. Every lie added weight to a number already fixed in her mind. Dinner preparations moved forward with forced normalcy. Naomi noticed details others ignored. Expensive champagne opened without hesitation, wedding brochures left in plain sight, the tension beneath Patricia's practiced cheer. Naomi changed upstairs and returned composed. When Judith arrived, she carried herself with calm authority, embracing Naomi warmly. That brief moment confirmed what Naomi already knew: Judith was not part of the deception. As everyone took their seats, Lydia spoke excitedly about wedding plans, Daniel nodded proudly, and Patricia watched them with indulgent eyes. Naomi listened, silent, patient. When Judith reached for the carving knife, Naomi spoke. She thanked her aunt for the bicycle. The knife struck the plate with a sharp clang. Judith froze. She asked Naomi what she was talking about. Naomi repeated it calmly. Judith said, clearly, that she had given Naomi money, not a bicycle. Lydia reacted instantly, coughing and flushing. Patricia dropped her fork. Naomi felt no triumph yet, only clarity. The time for politeness had passed. The truth, carefully hidden behind family smiles and borrowed luxury, was finally ready to surface. Judith slowly set the carving knife down, the soft clink echoing louder than it should have. Her gaze moved from Naomi to Patricia, then to Lydia, measuring them both with a practiced stillness. She asked Patricia to explain why a financial gift had somehow become a broken bicycle. Patricia laughed nervously and said it must have been a misunderstanding, the kind that happened in families all the time. Judith did not smile. She said she remembered the transfer clearly. She had deposited the money into Naomi's account herself and had even confirmed receipt with the bank the next morning. She had trusted Patricia to inform Naomi, nothing more. Lydia avoided everyone's eyes, her fingers curling tightly in her lap. Daniel looked between them, confusion creeping into his expression. Naomi remained seated, hands folded, letting the silence do its work. Years of investigation had taught her that people revealed themselves most clearly when they tried to fill empty space with excuses. Judith's voice lowered, controlled and sharp. She said that $500,000 did not simply disappear. If it had been redirected, there would be records. Patricia's face had lost all color. She insisted again that it was a mistake, that Thanksgiving was not the time for accusations. Judith replied that honesty did not observe holidays. Naomi watched Lydia's breathing quicken, shallow and uneven. The room felt smaller now, the walls pressing inward as truth strained against pretense. Daniel finally spoke, trying to restore calm. He suggested calling the bank after the holiday, framing the issue as a technical error. Naomi stood before Judith could respond. She said quietly that there was no need to wait. She reached into her bag and placed a slim tablet on the table. Patricia's shoulders stiffened. Lydia's eyes widened in panic. Naomi explained that after receiving the bicycle, she had reviewed her account activity. Because Patricia had handled some of Naomi's finances years earlier, the bank had accepted an updated power of attorney without triggering an immediate review. Naomi tapped the screen. Transaction logs appeared, clean and official. She pointed out the deposit from Judith, followed less than a day later by an outgoing wire transfer for nearly the full amount. She enlarged the recipient's name. Lydia Carter. The room reacted at once. Daniel turned sharply toward Lydia, demanding an explanation. Lydia shook her head, insisting Naomi was fabricating evidence. Naomi calmly scrolled to the authorization document. She explained the forged signature, the uniform pressure, the missing personal marker she always used. Patricia broke down then, sobbing that she had only wanted to help Lydia start her life properly. Judith listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. Naomi continued, her voice steady. She displayed purchase records tied directly to the stolen funds, the luxury vehicle paid in full, wedding venue deposits, designer contracts. Each line item was time-stamped, verified, and traceable. Daniel pushed his chair back, disbelief giving way to anger. He said Lydia had sworn everything was earned honestly. Lydia cried, saying she had only wanted to be worthy of him, to appear successful. Naomi said nothing. Judith stood. She said the issue was no longer family conflict but criminal fraud. She stepped away from the table and made a phone call. When she returned, she informed them the authorities were on their way. Lydia begged her to reconsider, insisting family should protect its own. Judith replied that integrity mattered more than blood. Daniel announced the engagement was over. He left without looking back. Lydia collapsed into sobs. Patricia clutched her, glaring at Naomi and accusing her of cruelty. Naomi met her mother's gaze and said quietly that accountability was not cruelty. Sirens approached in the distance. The truth, once exposed, moved faster than anyone in the room could stop. The investigation unfolded swiftly. Federal charges followed: wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. Patricia was sentenced to prison. Lydia received probation, spared incarceration but not consequence. The public exposure destroyed her online persona within days. Sponsors vanished. Comments turned vicious. Daniel cut all contact. Judith supported Naomi without hesitation, standing by her through every interview and statement. Naomi did not gloat. She testified when required and then returned to her work. Months later, Judith visited Naomi and handed her an envelope. Inside was a new check, equal to the original gift. Judith said it was meant to be used freely, without deception attached. Naomi accepted it quietly. She used part of it to purchase a car she truly wanted, not as proof of victory, but as a symbol of closure. The rest she invested carefully, as she always had. When she drove away from the dealership, the road ahead felt open, unburdened by lies she no longer carried. Naomi never returned to the old house. Some endings did not require revisiting. She stayed in touch with Judith and kept her distance from the rest. The betrayal had been painful, but clarity had its own kind of peace. Naomi understood now that truth, once spoken, reshaped everything it touched. As she merged onto the highway, the city lights stretching forward, she felt no anger, only resolve. The past had closed behind her, clean and final. The legal process did not linger. Patricia's sentencing drew a quiet crowd, mostly journalists and distant relatives who watched with detached curiosity. Naomi attended only because she was required to testify. She listened as the judge read the charges, detailing the forged authorization, the misuse of trust, and the calculated movement of funds. Patricia wept openly when the sentence was announced, her composure finally gone. Naomi felt no satisfaction, only a distant sadness for what had been willingly destroyed. When it was over, Naomi left the courthouse alone. Outside, winter sunlight reflected off the stone steps, cold and clear. She inhaled deeply, as if clearing something heavy from her chest. That chapter had closed in law as well as in life. From that day forward, Naomi declined all interview requests. She had never wanted attention. Justice, for her, was not a performance but a conclusion. Returning to her apartment that evening, she dismantled the rusted bicycle herself, leaving it by the curb for disposal. Watching the sanitation truck carry it away felt symbolic, though she did not dwell on it. Some objects deserved no further meaning. Lydia's punishment unfolded more slowly and more publicly. Without sponsorships or income, she moved out of the city and into a small rented room far from the life she once displayed online. Naomi heard fragments of this through distant relatives but did not seek confirmation. She wished her sister no harm, but she refused to confuse compassion with responsibility. Lydia had chosen image over honesty, and the cost was isolation. Daniel filed formal statements with investigators, severing all legal ties. He did not contact Naomi again. Judith, meanwhile, remained steady and unwavering. She invited Naomi for dinner months later, not to discuss the case, but to speak about ordinary things, travel plans, books, work. That normalcy mattered. It reminded Naomi that family did not have to be built on obligation or silence. Trust, once broken, did not automatically regenerate simply because time passed. Professionally, Naomi's focus sharpened. The case had reaffirmed why she chose her field. She accepted a new assignment with a federal task force targeting large-scale financial fraud, relocating to a different city for a fresh start. Her new apartment overlooked a river, the water moving steadily regardless of what it carried away. On weekends, she drove the car she had purchased with Judith's gift, not to show it off, but to explore places she had postponed for years. Each mile felt earned. The work was demanding, but Naomi welcomed it. She trusted systems, patterns, and evidence more than promises. At night, she sometimes thought about how easily truth could be hidden when wrapped in affection. The thought no longer hurt. It informed her. Experience, she understood now, was simply data that stayed with you. One afternoon, Naomi received a brief message from an unknown number. It said only that someone hoped she was happy. Naomi recognized Lydia's phrasing instantly. She stared at the words for a moment, then deleted the message without replying. Closure did not require conversation. Happiness was not something she owed explanations for. She spent that evening walking along the river, watching the city settle into twilight. The lights reflected off the water in fractured patterns, beautiful but imperfect. Naomi felt grounded in a way she never had before. Her life no longer revolved around managing other people's expectations or cleaning up their deceptions. It moved forward at her pace, on her terms. When Thanksgiving returned the following year, Naomi spent it quietly with Judith. They cooked together, shared stories, and laughed without strain. There were no unspoken tensions at the table, no careful omissions. As they ate, Judith raised her glass and toasted honesty, resilience, and forward motion. Naomi returned the gesture, feeling gratitude without complication. Some families were chosen through action, not blood. Later that night, as Naomi drove home through empty streets, she reflected on how betrayal had once shattered her certainty. Now, it had sharpened it. She had lost illusions, not her future. The road ahead remained open, and she intended to travel it fully aware, unburdened, and free. In the months that followed, Naomi settled fully into her new routine. Work demanded precision and patience, qualities she had learned to rely on long before her family fractured. Her new colleagues knew nothing of the scandal, and she preferred it that way. She was valued for her clarity, not her past. On quiet evenings, she cooked simple meals, read technical journals, or watched the river from her balcony as it carried reflections of the city downstream. Life no longer felt fragile. It felt deliberate. The chaos she once endured had sharpened her judgment rather than hardened her heart. Naomi trusted fewer people now, but she trusted herself completely. That distinction mattered. Judith remained a constant presence, though never intrusive. Their conversations were steady and unforced, built on mutual respect rather than obligation. Judith never apologized for involving law enforcement, and Naomi never expected her to. They understood each other without explanation. When Judith spoke about legacy, she spoke of integrity rather than wealth. Naomi listened closely. She had learned that money, without honesty, distorted everything it touched. Used correctly, it became simply a tool. Nothing more, nothing less. That understanding stayed with her. Naomi did not follow Lydia's life afterward. She resisted the temptation to check, to measure whether consequences had taught lessons. Some paths were not hers to monitor. Forgiveness, she believed, did not require proximity or access. It required acceptance of reality. Lydia had chosen image over truth, and Naomi had chosen distance over resentment. The boundary held. It was firm, quiet, and necessary. One evening, while driving home after a long day, Naomi realized something had changed. The memory of the Thanksgiving confrontation no longer carried heat. It had become neutral data, another solved case, another closed file. She no longer replayed conversations or imagined alternate outcomes. The past had stopped demanding attention. That, she understood, was freedom. As winter gave way to spring, Naomi planned her first real vacation in years. Not a visit home. Not an obligation. A choice. She booked a quiet coastal town and packed lightly. Before leaving, she stood once more in her apartment, sunlight stretching across the floor, and felt a quiet sense of completion. Nothing had been left unresolved. Nothing followed her. Driving toward the airport before dawn, Naomi merged onto the highway as the city lights faded behind her. The car moved smoothly beneath her hands, responsive and steady. She felt present, grounded, and unburdened. The future no longer felt like something she had to defend. It felt like something she was allowed to enter freely. Naomi did not look back. There was no need to. The truth had done its work, cleanly and completely. What remained was a life shaped by clarity rather than illusion. The road ahead was open, and she intended to keep moving forward, aware, unafraid, and entirely her own. Thank you for watching until the end. If you were in Naomi's position, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, or exposed the truth? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.